All right, welcome to Matt's Math and More. So you've made it to lesson 4. So this one actually gets a little bit harder. This one's going to take a little getting used to. It's going to take you maybe once or twice. You might need to watch it once or twice. I don't know. You might need to slow it down, maybe pause when we get to some places where I'm showing you how to do the math, and then go to your homework while the screen's pause and kind of check out how what I'm doing compares to your homework, and that might make it a little easier. This one's called using the least common multiple, and the reason you would use it today is because we're comparing fractions, but we're comparing fractions that have denominators that aren't the same and numerators that aren't the same. So we have unlike numerators, unlike denominators. What we're going to have to do is find a common denominator. The way you do that is by finding the LCM, least common multiple. And I made up a new thing. Everyone in the world uses LCM. I made up LCMT because I like how it sounds, like empty. I don't know, LCMT. And what I'm going to do today is teach you my LCMT, and then you could use the LCMT to solve this type of problem. Now, this is a little harder. It's not as bad as like being eaten by a lion or anything, but it's harder. Here's an example of fractions that have numerators that are different and denominators that are different. So unlike numerators, unlike denominators. And I'm telling you I want to compare them. So whenever we say compare, it just means we want to know greater than, less than, or equal to. That's called comparing. You can also use the same skill though with LCMT, the LCMT, for adding or subtracting. So this is a really important one to get to know, LCMT. What we're going to concentrate on is our denominators. 6 and 8. Right now, what I need to do is find a common denominator, something that is common between both of them, where I could change these fractions, keep them equivalent, and then compare them. The way I'm going to do that is by finding the LCMT. LCMT looks like this. LCM stands for least common multiple. That's something that the whole world uses. The T, that's something I made up. What it is kind of it's really just a chart. It goes like that. It's really kind of like a sideways T. So there's your LCM, and that's the T. That's called the LCMT. I'm going to show you how to use that to find a common denominator. So at this point, it's time to use your LCMT. I'm going to look at my denominators, and I'm going to make my T. And I'll put each of my denominators on the T. So the 6 goes in this row, and the 8 will go in this row. 6 and 8, those are my denominators. I'm going to use them to find my least common multiple. And all I'm going to do is find the multiples of 6 and multiples of 8. Hopefully you're starting to get to know your multiplication tables by now. If you're not, you can always go back to one of these charts that you have at home. But you should be starting to learn what your multiples of 6 are and your multiples of 8 are. But if you don't know them yet, you can still do this, because really I just want you to know how to do the math. And 8's already done. So I can see my multiples of 6. 6 times 1, 2, 3, so 6, 12, 18, 24, 30. And I can see my multiples of 8. 8, 16, 24, 32. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug those into the chart. So 6 times 1 is 6. 2 is 12, 18, 24, 30, and I'm just going to stop at 30. You can go on forever, but I'm just going to put a few of them in there and see if I find any matches, and if I don't, I can expand in a little bit. Let me show you what I mean by matches. I'm going to go to my 8s. Well, so 8 times 1, see, I can just do 8, 16, 24, 32, 8, 16, 24, 32, and I'm going to stop because I noticed something. I noticed that they both have this number 24 in common. That's what I'm looking for. That's what the C in common means. So these are my multiples, and now I found one that's common, and this is the smallest one they have in common. The least common multiple is 24. Now, if I kept going and going and going, I'd find other multiples, like 48 will be a multiple also. But this is the least common multiple, and that's going to really help me a ton when I'm finding the common denominator for these fractions. So now that we've established that 24 is our common denominator, we can go back up here to our original fraction. All that tells me is I need to turn these into fractions with a denominator of 24. And I know that 6 times 1, 2, 3, 4 is 24. And whatever I do to the bottom, I do the same to the top. So that means my new fraction will be 20 over 24. They're equivalent. They mean the same thing. It just changed the denominator and changed the numerator, but we did it equally. So these are worth the same amount. I can do the same thing over here in 8. 8 times 1, 2, 3 is 24. Whatever I do to the bottom, I do to the top. So 3 times 3 is 9. 24ths. These are equivalent fractions as well. Now I can compare these two because they have the same denominators. I can see that 20 24ths is way larger than 9 24ths. So 20 24ths is greater than 9 24ths. If you forgot which way the greater sign goes, just put little teeth in here so you know that like the alligator is eating the bigger number. So since these are equivalent, that also means that 5/6 is greater than 3/8. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Not a lion eating. That's bad.